Stalker 2 is a massive game. There is a big map with a lot to do. There's a campaign, which I mainlined in my first playthrough, which took me about 70 hours. Oh wow, there's such a pretty butterfly over there.
Rolling.
I know, I just wanted to look at the butterfly.
Wait. Oh, fuck, it went away. Alright.
This got me this 8% of all players achievement and a much needed break from the game. I think about how there's just sausages everywhere in the world of Stalker, and your character just like picks them up off the ground and just eats them. You play as Skiff, a Ukrainian Marine veteran that has been pulled to the zone by an anomaly destroying his apartment. Through some connections, he sets up a job to go in the exclusion zone where bizarre things happen. Things go south, and he's pretty quickly entangled in a web of military cover-ups, messy faction beef, and the experiments that go down in a place like the Chernobyl exclusion zone. You are a stalker when you play as Skiff, but as you follow the main story, you're painted as this sort of hero stalker that can get the job done. You're sent into missions that most ordinary stalkers wouldn't take because of there being no evident payout and just the pure risk, demonstrated by those you find along the way who have attempted such things. Skiff does it because he has become immersed in the highest level of secrecy that goes down in the zone, and, well, revenge.
If you're looking for somebody, go to Zalicia. Talk to Warlock, the local bartender. He might know something.
What I wanted to know was, can you play this game like you're just an ordinary stalker? You're thrown into this big map with loads of approaches to choose from, so I wanted to know, is this possible? The reason I doubted this originally was because despite being in a big fleshed out world, there's a lot of locked doors and walled off areas that are only accessible through the main story. So, I was curious, what would it be like to just play the game like you're a regular, vodka drinking, campfire sitting stalker? Before I lay out what I decided would dictate this playthrough, I think it's important to understand what a stalker really is. To do so, let's go back in time.
Our guys don't know how to take it easy. Get a couple of drinks in them and they start yapping about who got mauled by mutants or anomalies, all the wild shit they've seen. Boring.
In 1971, Arkady and Boris Strugatsky, I probably butchered those, wrote the book Roadside Picnic. It is a science fiction book that came out of the Soviet Union. This book tells a story of zones that are products of an alien visit to Earth. The visit was so brief that nobody noticed them, but what they left behind were these zones of strange anomalies. The idea is, when you go on a picnic, along a journey on the road, you aren't thinking about the things that exist in the spot you're stopping, and what you leave behind is a vastly different landscape for creatures like ants and other bugs. And it doesn't even matter now who it was. No stalker, unless he's completely nuts, will go anywhere near the zone when he knows he's being watched. So in Roadside Picnic, deadly elemental and natural phenomena unexplainably flourish in these zones, and alongside them alien objects exist. Stalkers are people who go into these zones and try to find the alien artifacts to bring out and sell. In 1979, the movie Stalker was made by Andrei Tarkovsky, based on the screenplay written by the original authors of Roadside Picnic. This movie is critically acclaimed among cinephiles and classic sci-fi buffs. The story follows a stalker that is guiding a writer and professor into the zones to get to the location, The Room, where supposedly people's deepest desires come true. We watched it, and I gotta say, it's fantastic and deserves all the love. Then you have the Stalker video game series starting in 2007. In the Stalker universe, the Chernobyl nuclear accident is a real thing which created the zone, but secret laboratories using the zone's secrecy for doing experiments are to blame for a lot of the anomalous activity. Stalkers act pretty similar to the depiction of them in Roadside Picnic, going into the zone and trying to find artifacts for profit. In the Stalker video games, however, the zone is more of a habitable place. People are everywhere, there are established bases and factions, and stalkers, in addition to hunting artifacts, get into all sorts of stuff like dirty jobs and conflicts with bandits. In Stalker 2, these guys are everywhere, a lot of times hanging around a fire, playing guitar, and exchanging jokes, or at the bar drinking. They roam around where you can find them looking for loot or helping you out in a pickle. So to set the parameters for what I was trying to accomplish, I first looked to the map. You start off in the bottom center of the map in the Lesser Zone. By the end of the campaign, you've made it to the top left corner in the city of Pripyat. Pripyat is a real-life town closest to the Chernobyl nuclear plant, where almost 50,000 people associated with the plant lived and were evacuated during the Chernobyl disaster, leaving it a real-life ghost town. In the game, Pripyat is not only where the highest tier loot is, but also where the most danger is. I figured if I was a stalker, my goal would be to end up there. So that's parameter 1. The next would be, how would I get there? I of course have seen most of the areas in the map in my first playthrough, so I can't unlearn that. But I did come up with the idea that I couldn't go somewhere without there being a point of interest on my map, or if someone in the game had told me about it. And I don't mean I couldn't explore, because that's a lot of what stalkers do, but what I mean is I know where all the bases are in the game. So I can't just straight shot them without being told of it or finding it in some way of curiosity. Lastly, I figured just to make things more interesting and measurable, I had to sleep each night. Stalkers gotta rest, right? In light of this, I would record everything of note that happened each day, and by the end, I would know how many in-game days it took me to get to Pripyat. It's not as stale as I thought it would be. Oh, it's bread. Let's go through my first day, just to see what this will look like. It begins in the introduction, of course. This is just when Skiff gets in the zone, blah blah blah. We aren't really here for all of this time. Eventually, after getting knocked out and all your stuff is stolen, you're let loose in the zone. On my way to the settlement that I was told of, I ran into some bandits shooting at somebody in the house. After getting a closer look, they saw me, I killed them, and went to talk to the guy in the house.
You fucked them up pretty good, eh? I didn't expect anyone to step in for me. That's rarer than Mama's beats around here.
He gave me a side quest to save his friend, so I pursued that. He gave me the coordinates to his stash, giving me my first non-pistol pristine gun, and so I headed to save his friend. After clearing out the bandits, I talked with his friend, who wasn't the happiest camper, but informed me of a nearby cave. In the cave, I found my first artifact. While looting some of the bandits, a nearby stash was revealed to me, so I went and nabbed that on my way to the settlement. Once I got there, I started talking with people around just to get the general vibe of the place and to see if anybody had any leads or missions for me. I did acquire some quests. The sun was setting, so I took a load off at the fire with a fellow stalker, and then I hit the hay. This should give you a pretty good idea of what the day will generally look like. Stashes would be a good way to explore and find out more about the area, because in passing, I would reveal POIs and more stashes from enemies encountered along the way. On top of that, I was now just a stalker, so my real goal was to just survive and make money while exploring the zone, hoping to eventually make it to Pripyat. Day 2 started off with doing a side quest.
Good boy. Stay away from the door, or Lumux will blow your head off.
The stash is at the water tower, at the very top. You'll know what to do once you're up there. Thank you, Stalker. I owe you one.
Thank you, Stalker. Out.
Then I watched this cool storm from the top of a radio tower, and then I headed to a nearby POI. Here, not only did I find an artifact, but also my first locked door. I went back to base, picked up a new mission, and hung out at the fire. This is where I realized that I actually could be checking the in-game time on my PDA. It was 7 p.m., and I didn't know if I had the time to do anything else, so I went to bed, which turned out to be a little too early because I woke up at 2 a.m. I figured if this happened to me in real life, I would just get up and accept the early start, so I went out to the fire, had a beer, and did some stargazing with my fellow stalkers. I thought of having no job. just being out in the zone, exploring, and grinding for the next sausage or some more ammo. Things as a stalker were really settling in. Over the next couple of days, I did the old stalker loop of side questing, stash hunting, and exploring, finishing the day at the fire.
A lot of people didn't like the new rules at first, but they realized pretty quickly that the zone needs a firm hand.
One cool thing that happened to me on day 3, when I was exploring, I found a guy inside a building hunkered down with grenade tripwires everywhere and sniping down at me. I took him out and not only got my first long-range rifle off of him, but found a note mentioning a bandit leader he was hired to take out called Elbow. I wasn't sure if that was a lead I could follow up, but I stashed the note and continued on where I found the locked door close by. This reminded me that you may not be able to get out of the lesser zone without access to this door. I wasn't sure if that was just what the story wanted you to believe or not, so I made note of all of the exit points on the map and made it my new goal to investigate them. In the meantime, I did follow up on a main story quest to talk with Gaffer, because I did think that it's what a new stalker in the zone would do. The lesser zone is where a lot of stalkers start out, and Gaffer likes to help them out and get started before they get further into the more dangerous areas. So on day 4, I went and talked to Gaffer to continue the main quest line while finishing up some side quests and stash locations. On day 5, I headed out early at 4 AM to check out some of the bridges, which were all a bust. With this in mind, I went and did the main story quest. This quest gave me a key.
Here's the key, Skiff.
Okay, I was finally going to get out of the lesser zone. After wrapping up some loose ends, I experienced my first emission. If you don't know, emissions are radioactive storms that periodically come, and if you're outside when they peak, you will die pretty quick.
Why get scared, though? Fate is fate. Whatever needs to happen will happen.
I headed to the gate where I encountered a tough fight and made my way out of the lesser zone, licking my wounds. That combat did take a good amount of my time, so the sun was already setting. Gaffer and others had told me of Garbage, a close settlement, so I was headed north to find it. This is one of the situations where I couldn't unlearn what I already knew, but a character, Solder, in the main story had actually told me of Garbage.
Nestor?
He's the one you should be talking to. The kingpin of Garbage. That huge pile of trash, you can't miss it. It's north of...
Being a stalker, I don't think it's far-fetched to assume that having that intel, I would just head north out of the lesser zone and hope to find a location you apparently can't miss. You also, as a stalker, have access to a terrain map on your PDA, and the settlement of Garbage is pretty obvious there.
Alright,
Okay.
we're rolling.
Hopefully this is sharp enough to do this. It seems like it is.
Please don't hurt yourself.
That actually worked really well. In America land, we have sweetened condensed milk. Do we have normal condensed milk that's not sweetened? I've never seen that.
There is unsweetened.
Well, that works really well. Okay. After arriving at Garbage, I chatted with some of the people there, obtained some side quests, and hit the hay. For the next few days, I lived a pretty simple stalker life. Hit some side quests, hung out with other stalkers, looted stashes, sat at some fires, and went to bed.
A veteran stalker asks some rookies, when does a mutant have 4 legs and 1 arm? Kids sit there all confused. When he's eating some fresh-caught rookies.
On day 9, I was feeling a bit stir-crazy in Garbage and wanted to see some new sights. I had the stash on my map in the southeast from a mysterious journalist. Along my way, my radio started to go off from somebody sending out a distress message.
Hello? Come in.
I figured they must be close, so I investigated the nearest large POI. Here I found some guys injured and asking for me to take care of a mutant in the underground. It was the exact adventure I was looking for at the time, so I took them up on the offer. This is where I ran into zombies for the first time. Zombies in this game are pretty brutal. They have guns, they just unload on you and can tank multiple headshots. Grenades will just knock them down, so in groups they become a quick problem. I got the key to the underground off this poor sap and made my way through a tunnel system until I was met with my first encounter with a controller. This experience of meeting 2 new enemy types was no coincidence, as controllers use a psi to control your mind. If you fall victim to them, they turn you into a zombie. They also do loads of annoying stuff like randomly spawn enemies and send psi waves to knock you off balance. You can find psi blockers that temporarily help against them, which luckily there was one on the ground right before I met this controller and made quick work of it. On my way out, I got caught up with some internal drama, where this guy with a nice shotgun decided to lay down in front of me.
We'll see who's out of luck here.
With that out of the way, I did the old over-encumbered waddle back to base and went to sleep. Because I didn't get to sleep till 3 AM, I rolled out of bed at 10 AM. I took my glorious loot from the previous night to the trader and racked up to around 60,000 coupons. After repairs and a couple upgrades, I was back down to 14,000. Which is just the stalker life. With my diminished wallet and pristine gear, I took a job from the bartender Boozer to take out a bandit kingpin, which went well. After returning and selling all the guns from those poor bandits, I checked out a stash one of the PDAs revealed to me. This ended up being near a pretty large POI, so I figured I'd check that out while I was out and about. This led me to finding Rostok. Rostok is one of the largest settlements with multiple traders and a couple of side quests.
Well, I did get some overtime this week.
Good for you. Then it's the right time to place a couple bets. Turn that overtime into double time.
After talking with some folks for quests and sleeping, I headed out to take care of some bandits that the barkeep told me were a problem. This ended up being a pretty big mission where from the underground you infiltrate a bandit camp.
Oh man, you're right on time.
If you stealthily listen in on a conversation, it becomes apparent that they are keeping a mutant hostage. You get an optional side quest to release this mutant, which when doing so you realize is a pseudo-giant, the largest and hardest to kill of the mutants. I did release it, but knew the bandits wouldn't do much to it, so I slowly damaged it while it ran around and took out some of the bandits. I of course had plenty to trade coming back from that and collected my reward, which was all in all a long day. I rested up and got up the next day at 3:48 AM and headed out to investigate some northern loot stashes. I found one stash that had some pretty awesome loot, but also led to a big ambush. After that, I climbed a giant crane that had a stash on top of it. This proved to be a whole ordeal because it was littered with anomalies, and it took me a second to figure out how to get to the very top. After realizing for the first time in close to 100 hours of this game that this type of anomaly just serves as little jump pads, I made it all the way to the top. Here, I found my first SVU MKS-3 and a pretty good view of what was north of here. Now, once again, I was in a spot where I couldn't unlearn what I had already knew, but thought about what would a stalker do. Alright, I think this is going to be the worst one, because it's just chicken and water. We don't really have an American land. Like, oh god, dude, that looks so bad. Ugh. I'm going to have to like use it like a fork, or a spoon, I mean. It's protein. I marked Rostok on my map, and it was about a kilometer away. With the sun setting, I could make it back in time to sleep, but I was losing daylight. Pripyat had come up in dialogue with multiple NPCs, so I knew it was to the north and guarded. I could make out Pripyat through the scope of my new rifle, from the top of the crane, and also a large compound. On my map, it seemed evident that Pripyat was walled off and centralized around this large compound, so I figured I'd check it out to see if there was a place to sleep. There are sometimes random beds that you can sleep in. I'm not super sure what dictates the random ones, but every now and then you can run into them in a random warehouse or something. After taking on a pack of dogs, I got close to the compound and it became evident that it was occupied and there were patrols everywhere. This is where I discovered the zone Yaniv and the base there. I began talking with some folks there, and I was told that if I wanted to get into Pripyat, I had to get onto a list decided by the colonel of that faction. I talked with everybody I could, and everybody basically said the same thing, but didn't tell me where this colonel was or how I could get onto the list. That was until I spoke to the repair person at this base, and she told me that doing some quests for her might make me look good to the colonel and get me on the list.
But if you're itching to impress Diktarov's corpse, I can hook you up with a side gig. Paid, of course. Or did you swing by just to get your gun fixed?
Surely that was my avenue to getting into Pripyat, right?
Oh, my hero.
Her first quest was for me to find a rare artifact. I kind of figured it had to be close to the base, so I came up with a plan to hit some stash locations that were close and a side mission. I had picked the side mission up from a distress radio message on my way to the crane. I went to bed at 11 p.m. in Yaniv and woke up at 6:05 a.m. on day 13. Now this is where one of the biggest differences between my original playthrough and this new one shows up. In my original playthrough, I was streamlining the main story. I was discovering stashes all over to the point where my map was just overwhelming and it felt daunting to try to find stashes revealed to me. I had done this side mission I was on my way to do in my original playthrough, but I had not found the stash at the same location I was going to find. Not only did I not find the stash revealed to me at the time, but I specifically remember shooting out the boards to the underground and looking down there thinking, I might just die if I go down there, so I'm gonna carry on with the quest. This time though, I knew there was a stash somewhere down there, which to my surprise, had the exact artifact I needed to sell to the repair person in Yaniv. So I did the side quest while I was there, which triggers a pretty long string of side quests to establish a new base in the southern burnt forest. I made my way back to Yaniv and sold the artifact and collected my 30,000 coupons. You can't take side quests from people at bases immediately after turning one in, so I figured I'd go back to Rostok and wrap up some leads on quests and stashes and return. Eventually, I returned to her and collected another quest. I chose another 30,000 coupon artifact hunt because it was the quest with the highest reward, so I assumed it would make the best impression on the Colonel. I was a little thrown off by her not mentioning anything about impressing the Colonel after turning in the last quest or picking up this new one, but I figured something must change when I turned this last one in. Given my luck with the last artifact and assuming this one will also be close, I tried the same approach of just going to near stashes while also checking out POIs. I first checked out a close POI where an anomaly had stacked a bunch of trains on top and into each other. There I did find an artifact, but it wasn't the one I was looking for. Right after this, I got into a big fight with some bandits that really put a hurt on me. I ran out of ammo for my sniper, so I picked up a damaged shotgun off one of the bandits. Lacking a ranged weapon and licking my wounds, I thought I'd go on to the outskirts around the near train station in case bandits were patrolling there too. In the woods on my way to the stash, I found this scanner surrounded by skeletons. It was a pretty evident video game moment that there was some sort of event that could be triggered here, but I actually assumed it was for a main mission and I wouldn't be able to do anything. Just in case, I saved and got the broken shotgun ready to use. To my surprise, the scanner started and then a bunch of animal mutants spawned in. Among them was an armored elk, which I had only seen in the game one other time. I'm super glad I picked up that shotgun because I don't think I would have made it out alive otherwise. After defeating all the mutant animals, I went back to the scanner and lucky me, it had the exact artifact I needed. Once again, something I never experienced in my first playthrough that playing like an actual stalker had led me to. After gathering mutant parts to sell, I made my way back to the base in Yaniv. Now when I turned in this quest, the repair person didn't bat an eye. No voice line, no mention of the Colonel or anything.
The veterans who won't freaking veterans. They stick together.
Be quick about it. My tea's getting cold.
I want to talk about the artifact deal.
Then make it quick. I was about to take a nap.
Here, you can have it.
You really found it? Whoa. Here's your pay.
I was kind of annoyed and decided to run around the base and talk to everybody I could again. No mention of anything I could do to get on the list to be let into Pripyat, so I began to worry and looked up if you could get into Pripyat without the main story. As it turns out, by design, you can't get in without the main story, and that quest is about 90% of the way through a 40 to 50 hour campaign. There was no way I was doing that again. I was really bummed and shocked at this decision by the devs. I get that a lot of stuff in the game is designed to be triggered by the main story, but the whole point of the game is to be a stalker. A true stalker would find a way into Pripyat if they really wanted to. While researching, I did come across something that I actually had come across in the past. I remember the first time I stumbled across Yaniv in my first playthrough, and I looked up how to get into Pripyat, and this was in the first month of the game coming out. People had figured out that there is a specific spot that you may or may not be able to sneak in that seems potentially not entirely by the developer's design. Now I had a decision to make. Did I just play this game for another 30 hours like an actual stalker just to be stopped at the wall of Pripyat? No way. And I had two thoughts about this. It wasn't clear whether this route still worked, but if it did, the devs must be aware of it, and the game has been out for more than a year. I think if they intended to patch this, it would have been done by now. My second thought was if a stalker heard from other stalkers of a cheeky way to get into Pripyat, of course they would use that way. So, I geared up with some of my best stuff, slept for the night, and dreamt of the towering apartments of Pripyat. On day 15, I awoke in Yaniv and headed straight to the spot. Now after committing that crime, I was in Jupiter. Jupiter is a small region between Yaniv and Pripyat. There aren't a ton of POIs in this area, but there are some buildings that serve as a sort of maze you gotta get through to get into Pripyat. After a minute, I found my way, and there I was. After 15 in-game days and roughly 30 hours, I made it into the eerie streets of Pripyat. So to answer the question of, can you play Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl like an actual Stalker, I would say absolutely yes. There are some minor limitations, and I do wish there was a more interesting way of getting into Pripyat than the main story or finding a cheeky little spot online, but I feel like this character has spent his time like a stalker about as much as you can. And maybe you could argue that the way I got into Pripyat is the most stalker way you could. So now, in Pripyat, I was up against the toughest there are in the zone. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Slowco. That's all I really got to say. See you in the next one. Bye.